The world, seen through a divine or human eye, is a world of Maya, but one disclosed to the prajna is the real one. Therefore, logically speaking, Maya is not a quality objectively attached to the world. It is not inherent in it. It rather belongs to the subject. As indeed the idealistic Mahayana does not admit the existence of an external world, whatever qualities we ordinarily think as belonging to the latter are creations or constructions of our own mind. But if we allow ourselves to be guided by the discriminating imagination, the world must be said to have in itself something of the nature of Maya, for its impermanence is patent to us all. It appears and disappears like lightning, having no substances in it. To say that this is an evanescent world is to say that it is always becoming, never in a state of being, that is, in constant flux, as an ancient philosopher describes it. We must, however, be most careful not to be carried away by the ordinary method of interpreting the world and designate its transiency or constant becoming in Mahayanistic terminology. This is strongly colored with an idealistic tinge, and to apply it in an objective realistic sense will be quite misleading. When the world is said to be like Maya, it is to be understood subjectively and not objectively. Such objective terms as transiency or a flux of becoming presuppose realism and are not, strictly speaking, in harmony with the absolutely idealistic standpoint adopted by the Mahayanists. So with the conception of sunyata, or emptiness, we must bear in mind the fact that the term is not to be found in a logician's dictionary, nor in one containing realistic terms only. For it is the word coined by the possessor of the wisdom eye when he has reviewed the world as I look at a sheet of paper before me this very moment. By him, the world is perceived stripped of all of its logical predicates and also its so-called objective trappings. The world thus appearing in its nakedness has been designated empty, or sunya, by the Mahayanists. It is in this sense, therefore, that it can be said there is nothing substantial in the world, nothing which has individuality, nothing which can be grasped, and that it slips through the hands, one predicate disappearing after another, so that it cannot be designated as being or, by its opposite, non-being. No term that admits of an antithesis can be applied to the world, as it is beyond the logic of opposites. Before one term definitely fixes its quality, it runs over to the other alternative. The Lankavatara, therefore, declares that the world as it is does not fall within the four propositions or points, and in the first chapter even, 108 negations are enumerated. The most truthful description of the state of things as we experience in this world of particulars will be, from the Buddhist way of thinking, to compare it with Maya as created by the magician. Making use of whatever objects a man chooses, he makes a variety of phantom creatures which appear to the spectators as real and substantial. But in this, neither the magician nor the objects fancifully created are at fault. The fault lies with the spectators who make erroneous judgments, permitting things where they are not. The sutra gives further analogical proofs to impress upon us the truth of the Maya conception, or that of sunyata. That a picture is seen as if it really had three dimensions, that a bedimmed eye imagines a hairnet, that a circle traced out by a firebrand in quick motion is considered real, that a bubble is taken for a crystal ball, and further, that the reflection of a tree in a lake, an image in a mirror, an echo reverberating through the valley, a mirage in the spring field, and the wooden man operated by a goblin, that each of these objects is regarded as an actuality, is due to the error of judgment on the part of an unenlightened mind, which, being placed under permeating memory influence of past thoughts and desires, is self-incapacitated from looking into the truth of the matter. However, we must not take them for absolute illusions, for they are there and yet they are not there, so that the category of existence fails to be applied here. From the dualistic point of view, we feel inclined to interpret these terms of objectivity as denoting the idea of mere transiency or unreality. But when the whole trend of Buddhist thought is understood, we know that these similes are meant to describe a state of things, to which such logical conceptions as is and is not are inapplicable, but which must be directly experienced in the inmost consciousness with the understanding of reality as it is. The Lankavatara says, quote, "The sky or space, the hare's horns, and a barren woman's child, they are not only talked of, so are things discriminated. In the totality of causes and conditions, the ignorant imagine birth. Not knowing the reason, they go astray in the triple world." Close quote. This may seem to mean all things are mere names. Their existence is not more than a matter of subjective discrimination. To think that things are really born, stay, and disappear in the system of causes and conditions is an illusion. All these realities, so-called, have no objective validity, and therefore the world is altogether empty, void, unreal, and a mass of nothingness. To think this way, however, is not the position of the Mahayanist. What he wants us to do is that we should have a revulsion of the whole system of mentality and get a new point of view where we may survey the world. The sutra therefore states a little further down that the difference between the wise and the ignorant is that the former are free from error. It means imagining things as they are not, taking error for truth. The wise, not hampered by this imagination, see that the world is like Maya and has no reality. But at the same time they know that it is there, that it is not pure nothingness. Why? Because they have gone beyond the relativism of being and non-being. An external particularized world is an illusion as long as the ignorant are unable to break through the fetters of wrong discrimination, whereas to the wise the phenomenal world is true in its suchness or tathata. What, therefore, is an error to one is truth to the other, because the latter is entirely free from all forms of discrimination. To repeat, the objective world is an error. There is nothing real about it. It is Maya. It is empty or sunya. But this does not mean that it is altogether non-entity and merely a vast expanse of vacuity. The world, even if it is in error, is there to the wise as well as to the ignorant. But the wise know that it is of an elusive nature, and in this cognition they are neither perverted nor unperverted. They just see it in reality. They perceive the world as it truly is, and while they do this, the world, or what is regarded as such by the ignorant, is eternal and beyond the reach of every possible dualistic category. It is in this sense that the Lankavatara declares, quote, "This world of error is eternity itself, truth itself," close quote. If the wise, as the sutra states, cherish even an incipient stirring of thoughts rooted in discrimination or particularization of forms and signs, they are far from the reality and thought of supreme wisdom, and the wise fall into the rank of the ignorant. It, however, is to be remembered that the existence of this erroneous and confusing world makes it possible for the wise to cause a revulsion in their minds and awaken their supreme wisdom from the narcotic effect of evil memory accumulated since time immemorial. This narcotic effect, manifested in so many aspects of consciousness, causes it to differentiate reality as in a dream into subjects and successive appearances, and thus accepting them as real, and to cling to them as to the truth. But, realizing the elusive nature of these intellectual discriminations, the wise rise above them, and seeing them as errors, transmutate falsehood into truth, phantasm into reality. And on account of this realization, they know that what confronts them is neither reality as imagined by the ignorant, nor unreality as inferred by the unreflecting. The world is such as it is. It is neither existence nor non-existence. No such predicates are applicable to it, and for this reason what is termed an error for the ignorant is tathata, or suchness, for the wise. Though this statement sounds paradoxical, or even irrational, the position of the Lankavatara will readily be comprehended when we abandon our dualistic standpoint and see the world from its aspect of eternity. So we have, quote, "The wise do not see the erroneous world, nor is there any reality in the midst of it. But since the erroneous world is reality, there is reality in the midst of it. If, by abandoning all that is of the erroneous world, something is to rise, this something is in error, like a cataract which has not yet been cleared off the eye." Close quote. In short, all such apparent paradoxes are designed to adjust our thoughts to the actuality of existence, with which no ordinary rules of logic are compatible. To say it is eternalism. To say it is not is nihilism. And the object of Buddhist reasoning is to avoid both these two antithetical views. Though not necessarily attempting to establish idealistic monism, but to lead us to the way of experiencing it in its inwardness as well as in its totality. O Lord of Lanka, reads the sutra, he who sees thus sees rightly. If seen otherwise, it is, quote, carrying on discrimination, because there is discrimination which leads to dualism. It is like seeing one's own face in water, or like seeing one's own shadow in the moonlight, or by the lantern, or listening to an echo of one's own voice in the valley, wherein discrimination takes place, leading to attachment. In like manner, to separate dharma from adharma, or A from not A, is only due to discrimination, and on account of this, one finds it impossible to do away with the distinction, thereby creating all forms of falsehood. One is thus unable to realize tranquility. By tranquility is meant oneness of objects, and oneness of objects is the highest samadhi, from which grows an inner perception of supreme wisdom. The Tathagata Garbha is its objective. Close quote. As we see here, any thought that permits of opposition or antithesis, such as is or is not, dharma and not dharma, is considered to be the outcome of discrimination. And as long as this is cherished, one can never realize the standing of pure idealism, and the understanding of absolute oneness will never take place. In the Lankavatara, Mahamati is made to ask the Buddha, quote, "If this world is an error, as taught by thee, is it to be regarded as existent or non-existent?" The natural conclusion, as we ordinarily will see it, will be, quote, "This erroneous world does not exist," close quote. But the Buddha says, quote, "It exists as Maya, and no aspects of it are worth clinging to. If there are any aspects of it worth clinging to, there can be no rejecting of the notion of substance, and the theory of causation will be upheld, as is done by the philosophers who assume the existence of a final cause." Close quote. If this erroneous world is like Maya, does this not lead to the creation of another error? The Buddha says, quote, "No, it does not, because Maya is not the cause of the error, because it does not produce faults and fallacies. Maya, indeed, does not produce faults and fallacies. O Mahamati, Maya is not the product of discrimination, but evolves from the magic formulas pronounced by another person. It owes not its existence to the power of self-discrimination and fallacious habit energy. It does not produce faults. Whatever faults there are in connection with this erroneous world come from the clinging of the ignorant to that which is nothing but the delusion of their own minds. The wise, however, are free from all this." Close quote.